DNI Gabbard and Geostrat Agency, LLC's Najadi, Two Sea-Loving Introverts, and Why Najadi's WEF 2026, Forward Marker Beat, Every Outside Agency, Listening to What President Trump Did Not Say at the Davos Podium 5 weeks before the first strike, by Yael R. Eastman. Washington, D.C. A short note from onshore. While Pascal Najadi is currently at high seas and offshore on a multi-day transit with intermittent Starlink coverage that has dropped out for the last several hours. Status note from the boat: as of approximately 20:30 hours Eastern Daylight Time, the principal's vessel is now under sail. Sea state 3 to 4 feet. Speed over water 7.6 knots, reported on the last position fix before the Starlink uplink dropped. The disruption is intermittent and entirely normal. Routine space asset signal interruption with the Starlink constellation in orbit, not an emergency in any sense. The ship is sound, the watch is set, and the principal is well. He will resurface when signal stabilizes, rather than wait, and so that our readers have what they need to understand the methodology that has carried this office through the predictive record of Operation Epic Fury 2026. I am stepping in, as his head of research, to file the short update on his behalf, with his standing authority. How the two operate. The question we receive most often is the simple one. It comes in private correspondence. It comes in the comment threads of this Substack channel. The question: how does Mr. Najadi do it? How does a one-man and head of research private intelligence office located on K Street, 5 walking minutes from the White House, with no bank account, with no donations, with no political affiliation, with no business development model, and with no classified access of any kind, manage to beat every major news agency? How does it beat every legacy think tank outside the classified United States government orbit? That orbit includes the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. That massive, world's most powerful, by far, intelligence and counterintelligence orbit includes the Pentagon. That orbit includes the White House. The office at 1500 K Street has beaten them all. Call after call, weeks ahead, across the entire 67-day military campaign of Epic Fury 2026. The short answer: Najadi always listens to all signals. The short answer is that he listens, and he listens with equal discipline to what is said and to what is not said. Even silent signals are analyzed by Mr. Najadi. The longer answer requires a brief detour through the science of how the introvert mind actually works, and why, in matters of signal detection in elite political speech, the introvert holds the structural advantage. I will return to the WEF 2026 forward marker in a moment. A note on the science. The seminal longitudinal research on what the modern literature now calls the high reactive temperament was conducted at Harvard University by the late Professor Jerome Kagan, the Dean of American Developmental Psychology, across more than 4 decades of clinical study. Professor Kagan's body of work, published continuously from the 1960s through his death in 2021, and now extended by his successors at Harvard, the Yale Child Study Center and Princeton, demonstrated repeatedly and conclusively that the temperamental introvert is not a quiet version of the extrovert. The introvert is a structurally different signal processing system. Introverts, on the brain imaging record, display higher baseline cortical arousal, greater prefrontal cortex gray matter density, and a deeper set neural reflex toward observation over response. They process information more slowly and far more thoroughly. They are biologically wired to notice what others miss and to weigh what they notice before they speak. Susan Cain's celebrated synthesis of this Harvard and Ivy League research in her best-selling work Quiet has placed it now in the cultural mainstream. The implication for our work is precise. In matters of statecraft signal detection, the introvert reads the room, the extrovert dominates the room. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and Pascal Najadi, identical temperament. Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard described herself, from her own Washington podium last month, in exactly that language, the textbook introvert child, the surfer girl on the deep waters of Hawaii. And the disciplined listener long before she was the disciplined stateswoman she is today. Pascal Najadi, in his own account given many times on this channel, describes himself in the same language: the textbook introvert child on the deep waters of Lake Lucerne, the quiet teenager forged into the man he became, and the disciplined listener long before he was the founder of Geostrat Agency, LLC. Both were textbook introverts as kids and teenagers, and yet today, each one of them sits at the head of an intelligence and analytical posture that, in their respective domains, reads what no one else hears. Director Gabbard now applies the discipline from the head of the 18 agencies of the United States intelligence community. Mr. Najadi applies it from a desk at 1500 K Street. Different chairs, same instrument, same temperament, same Harvard literature on why it works. The Najadi 2026 Davos WEF marker. In late January 2026, President Trump delivered his keynote address to the World Economic Forum in Davos, late by some hours, having landed at Zurich Airport not aboard Air Force One, but aboard a backup USAF C-32 after the president's highly modified Boeing 747-200 Air Force One had developed a cabin-light electrical flicker after takeoff from Joint Base Andrews and returned to base. The substitution was operationally routine. The president's address was not. The world heard the speech. Every major news organization reported on it. Every think tank circulated its summary. Almost none of them noticed what was missing from the speech. The choice of which adversaries the president named, and which he left carefully unnamed. The choice of which prior commitments he reaffirmed, and which he stepped quietly past. The choice of which strategic dossiers he anchored in plain rhetoric, and which he left in deliberate fog. These were the markers a serious reader was supposed to pick up. They were almost universally missed by most. But they were not missed by Mr. Najadi. The 21st of January, 2026, Najadi Doctrinal Report. On January 21st, 2026, Mr. Najadi published on this Substack channel the resulting analytical assessment, drawn entirely from listening to what President Trump did not say at the Davos podium, cross-checked against the operational tempo cues, the Rubio diplomatic schedule, and the visible repositioning of United States Central Command assets. The conclusion he reached was that Iran would be a target, and that it would be a target soon. Not in the abstract sense, but in the operational sense. Validation, February 28, 2026, 1:15 Eastern Time. 5 weeks later, on February 28, 2026, at 1:15 hours Eastern Time, Operation Epic Fury 2026 commenced under the joint command of the United States Central Command and the Israeli Defense Forces. The forecast filed on January 21, 2026 was vindicated to the doctrine, to the tempo, and to the strategic logic. It now stands on the binary verification standard of this office, and as confirmed in hindsight by the formal termination of the operation as mission accomplished by President Trump in his letter to Congress on May 6, 2026, as a 100% correct analytical assessment. The forward marker was the WEF 2026 podium. The reader who knew how to listen to what was not said had 5 weeks of analytical lead time over the entire global news and think tank field. That is the structural value of the introvert discipline at work. Harvard called it Geostrat Agency, LLC, on K Street in Washington, D.C., operationalized it. A note on intellectual property. The name Epic Fury 2026 is now a federally protected trademark of Mr. Pascal Najadi, registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, serial number 998074441, on the Principal Register, Standard Character Format, filed May 6, 2026. The name belongs to the office. The forecasting record that runs under it is open archive, paywall-free, and freely accessible to every reader at panajadi1967.substack.com. The second discipline, the cross-audit. Mr. Najadi does not ask his readership to take his accuracy on trust. The 2026 forecasting cycle on Epic Fury 2026 was independently audited. The standard applied was binary, time-stamped, and anchored in primary sources. The first audit was conducted by Anthropic's Claude. Claude is the artificial intelligence system in operational use at the United States Department of War. It is the same system deployed for the successful Caracas operation of January 2026. It is the same system deployed for Epic Fury 2026 itself. The Claude finding was then independently cross-confirmed by Elon Musk's Grok at XAI. The resulting dual AI cross-audit dossier was prepared as a courtesy delivery to the executive branch and to senior policy readers earlier this month. It places the accuracy of the principal calls at 95 to 100%. It records a measured lead time advantage of weeks against every major international news organization assessed. Those organizations include CNN, BBC, Reuters, The New York Times, The Wall Street Journal, The Financial Times, Neue Zürcher Zeitung, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, Fox News, and the wider field. The third discipline, zero institutional friction. The reason the legacy think tanks outside the classified orbit struggle to match this record is not analytical talent, it is institutional friction. A serious think tank operates with boards, funders, donor sensitivity reviews, peer review cycles, editorial committees, and a portfolio of competing thematic priorities. By the time their analysis clears, the forecast window has closed. Geostrat Agency, LLC, operates with one analyst, one head of research, one open Substack publication, and the institutional design that lets a time-stamped forecast move from the desk to the public archive in the hour. The signal is red. The friction is zero by design. The fourth discipline, doctrinal alignment. Mr. Najadi has stated openly in the About section of this publication and in every editorial he has filed that he is in moral and ideological alignment with the doctrine of peace through strength and America. First, as enacted by President Trump and implemented by his cabinet, by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, by Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and the 18 agencies in her orbit. That alignment is not an editorial compromise. It is the lens through which the silent signals are read. A reader who shares that doctrinal frame, even without classified access, can predict from the open record what a reader who does not share that frame cannot. The fifth discipline, on the record, no retreat. Both Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and Mr. Pascal Najadi share another commonality of their characters that aligns them as the former, identical, one-to-one textbook child and teenage introverts they once were. They have no fear. The fifth discipline, finally, is the willingness to speak up with clarity where it matters, and the rare trait of being willing to be held accountable, on the record, if wrong. Every forecast filed under the Geostrat Agency, LLC banner is time-stamped, published openly, and committed to the public archive. There is nowhere to retreat. The forecast either stands or it does not. That single editorial discipline, sustained over the 67-day arc of Epic Fury 2026 and now into the unfolding second act of Economic Fury, is the spine of the publication. Signal from the ship in transit offshore. And now I add this. By the way, it's me again, Pascal Najadi, speaking for this important core message thanks to Elon Musk's orbital Starlink reconnecting with our ship's systems, and to Yael again from the high seas. Let this stand as a marker in history, a prelude to what follows, offered in tribute to the magnificent Tulsi Gabbard and the brilliance of her teams. It is only the enlightened ruler and the wise general who will use the highest intelligence of the army for purposes of spying, and thereby they achieve great results. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Chapter 13. My tribute to DN. Tulsi Gabbard and her boss. Adversarial spy networks fear DN, Tulsi Gabbard and her 18 alphabet agencies. President Trump has not only leapfrogged the United States military 4 decades ahead of Moscow and Beijing, his foresight in creating the United States Space Force is now universally understood as the decisive edge no adversary can match. I informed our readers already on January 15, 2026. All nicely time-stamped and archived here, freely accessible for anyone to read and study. The orbital, invincible, far above, and integrated with every terrestrial weapons system and spy network on the planet, Space Force acts as the fused C2 backbone that connects every subsurface, surface, land-based, and air platform of the U.S. military into what I have defined as the fifth, now sixth, generation system of systems sensor-to-shooter architecture. With integrated AI-driven weapons, this system can shift attack and defense geometry in the battlefield, not only in real time, but preemptively. It does not respond to the battlefield, it shapes it before the adversary even moves. What many overlook is the silent weapon now wielded by DNI Tulsi Gabbard. Her restructured Office of the Director of National Intelligence has not only restored and elevated the art of intelligence and counterintelligence, it has been fused directly into the system of systems kill chain. Because signals matter. The discipline recalibrated thousands of operatives across the 18 agencies under the executive power and oversight of Tulsi Gabbard's highly intelligent and calm intellect, now constitute a counterintelligence and espionage capability fit for the leading military of the world. And the proof is on the record. In July 2025, DNI Gabbard declassified and released, at the President's direction, an HPS-CIA Majority Staff Oversight Report, along with overwhelming evidence that the Obama administration and its National Security Cabinet, including James Clapper, John Brennan, and James Comey, manufactured and politicized intelligence to lay the groundwork for what amounted to a years-long coup against President Trump. The Department of Justice subsequently formed a Russiagate strike force to assess the evidence and pursue legal consequences. The FBI launched criminal investigations of Brennan and Comey. And now, in 2026, Caracas Mill Op, with flying colors and the crescendo of all war operations ever since war historians began to think and write, the unmatched success of Epic Fury 2026. DNI Tulsi Gabbard. The compass that held. Through the storms of Operation Epic Fury 2026, she held the line, she held her people's trust, she maintained her course with decisiveness and the silence of a smooth operator, and she held the standard. The Office of Director of National Intelligence was always meant to hold. Second to none. Yes. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and her vast intelligence orbit were key. Make no mistake, the signals, the data, and the patient tradecraft of her shop mapped out the attack architecture for the Department of War and for the IDF, in close and trusted coordination with the feared and super-professional Mossad. That work saved American lives. That work saved Israeli lives. That work shortened the war. That work belongs in the historical record. And history will not forget it. She navigated her mandate with flying colors through veritable storms, compressed tempo, the highest demand for raw information accuracy, and the kind of pressure that has broken lesser hands across the long history of the intelligence community. She did not break. She did not bend. The truth is, she never lost her moral compass. Not once. Not in the darkest hours of the toughest decisions. She held the line. She held her people's trust. She held the standard that the Office of Director of National Intelligence was always meant to hold. And she grew. She became stronger as the mission progressed. She stayed right on course, unfettered, unflinching, unbought. The American people should know what kind of leader they have at the helm of the intelligence community today. A warrior. A citizen, a patriot who reads the storm before it hits, reads the human terrain before the brief is written, and reads the moral cost before the order goes out. That is rare. That is what this hour demanded. That is what she delivered. Bravo, DNI Gabbard. Bravo. That's, ladies and gentlemen, a world record in its own right, to collate under constant compressed tempo, and with field operatives operating deep inside hostile terrains, and collect and intercept terabytes of signal and data into a cohesive picture that provides deep penetration into all layers of the adversary's defense, communications, and command architectures. Better read this twice and let it sink in. Aloha to the Islamist terrorist Ayatollah and his thugs that are now in ashes on the other side of the river, pun intended. Truly priceless work, dear Tulsi. Wow, you took them all to the cleaners on a one-way ticket to their well-earned and deserved hell where they belong. These are not slogans. These are the direct, sourced results of a brilliant DNI team whose capabilities have been restored under disciplined leadership and whose work has restored due process and trust back to the American people and the agencies that serve them. America first. On the record. Verifiable. And now perhaps you wonder why I report so prominently and so openly on DNI Tulsi Gabbard. The answer is simple. It is only natural that she attracts my attention and my respect. I have good taste for a magnificent, good-looking woman, and I always value the best regardless. That is not about looks, although I cannot hide that either. Thanks be to God, I am not woke. And neither is my fiancée Coco, who herself admires Tulsi for exactly the way she carries herself. Beautiful, composed, intelligent, principled. That is why I call her magnificent. There is nothing strange about that. It is admiration in its proper sense. What drove me to speak up in her defense was watching, with quiet anger, how certain Americans, mostly Marxist ideology-drunken Democrats who spawn hatred across the lands and produce nothing else, attacked Tulsi in public, on fake news segments, at the lowest of low levels imaginable. Can you imagine, not Putin goons or communists from the hostile PRC or some bad and sick lunatics from the crushed and fractured Iranian Islamist EGRC. No, fricking United States senators and nonsensical hyperventilating Congress people, performing for cameras and ideology rather than serving the Republic. To them, I say only this. Shame on you for aggressing a lady in service that carries the sword and shield of your nation to protect you all. Mark my words. And you have seen nothing yet from Tulsi. And, for good measure, I add to this and say this to all present in the room from both sides of the aisle. Never mess with intelligence, or else you will find yourself speaking Chinese or Russian, living under Marxist totalitarian communist or system Putin rule within one generation, and eating insects with a pair of wash and reuse, filthy wooden chopsticks, or drink only vodka and eat a rotten loaf of bread for dinner. Because that's where those two failed systems' trajectory takes them, into a life under slavery, life 2.0, and there won't be any optional beta version in between your today's freedom, health, and wealth. But if you expressively want to live the bad and sick on our planet, feel free, but don't bother us righteous men and women rebuilding our golden age. And for good measure, listen carefully. Money talks, BS walks, and you're all the same types. Cowardly spawning BS and hatred against your own nation. You better saddle up and take a ride onto the wild side. In French, we say, dégage. No one right in their mind wants that. Only retards would accept such a future from our Western Hemisphere. Be surprised. To Tulsi and her family, with my affection, and to the leftists out there with measured disdain, I say this. Yes, we both had no degrees. We were shy to talk. We preferred, at times, to simply sit in a room and think. We were, indeed, the textbook introverts. And most, around us, thought we would never make it. They naively, that's what those fake people are, stupid, thought in all earnest that we would become easy bait. Ha! And in silence, Coco and I enjoy life. Low profile. Content. We are on the move. Both live the United States. Her way of life and her great people. And most importantly, we are living each day eagerly as if it were our last. Today, I am perhaps not as materially rich as my former banker colleagues whose fame trajectories tortured them, but with Bitcoin alone, including my investment banking year's pension, converted into it back in 2014, I am the happiest of them all. To serve, to communicate, and to live with the unwavering support of my beloved fiancé Coco, our American Maine Coon. And soon, a baby female Blenheim Cavalier King Charles Spaniel by the name of Lou. That is all we need. I am sure magnificent Tulsi has her own bliss with her wonderful, creative husband and family, because we all love our families, and we all carry, perhaps, a superdimensional affection for the love of God and all life on earth. Last but not least, we simply live our respective nations and our Judaic Christian way of life in our Western Hemisphere, because this is our homeland, this is our moral compass. I yield back with grace. Over and out. The methodology, in summary. That is the methodology. It is not complicated. It is, however, demanding, and it is sustained one disciplined working day after another from a desk at 1500 K Street, with no overhead, no marketing, no donor base, and no editorial layer between the analyst and the reader. Even silent signals are analyzed, especially silent signals. The Harvard literature explains the why. The WEF 2026 forward marker demonstrates how. The 67 days of epic fury 2026 that followed, validated 100% in hindsight, are the record. What comes next? Mr. Najadi resurfaced, as you witnessed just now, and in approximately 10 days, once his transit is complete and the Starlink connection stabilizes. The next move will be the formal opening of the Economic Fury Second Act editorial line, with pieces dedicated to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and to Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, who together hold the operational architecture of the global anti-corruption campaign now underway. In the meantime, the archive is open, the methodology is documented, the cross-audit dossier is in the reader's hands, and the door at 1500 K Street, as ever, is open to any honest interlocutor. With every good wish, from the office, Yael R. Eastman, Head of Research and Executive Secretary, to Mr. Pascal Najadi, Geostrat Agency, LLC, 1500 K Street, NW, Washington, D.C., United States, execsec at geostrat.agency. Office line +1 77120300610, always manned during business hours. References: the time-stamped Substack Analytical Assessment of January 21, 2026, filed by Mr. Pascal Najadi after listening to the silent signals of President Trump's WEF 2026 Davos podium address. The Geostrat Agency LLC video on the C-32 USAF arrival in Zurich, and the WEF 2026 Davos signal reading methodology on the YouTube channel. The Claude and Grok cross-audit dossier, independent verification of the Epic Fury 2026 forecasting record on the binary, time-stamped primary source standard, is attached to this filing. On the Harvard Scientific Literature referenced, Professor Jerome Kagan, Harvard University, Longitudinal Work on the High Reactive Temperament, and Susan Cain, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, which surveys the Harvard, Yale, and Princeton research bases. Epic Fury 2026 is a federally protected trademark of Pascal Najadi, USPTO, Principal Register, Standard Character Format, Serial Number 998074441, filed May 6, 2026. Copyright 2026, Geostrat Agency, LLC, 1500 K Street, NW, Washington, D.C. All rights reserved.
John Kiriakou is a former CIA officer and whistleblower. Does this jive with how things are done at the agency? Someone just makes a phone call and everything changes?
Unfortunately, yes. We see this kind of thing all the time. And Jesse, at the heart of this story is that it's always best to tell the truth. The truth always comes out. And I want to comment on the whistleblower, too. This was a very brave thing he did. He put his reputation on the line today. He told the world exactly what the truth was. He'll probably never work in government again because of it. But now we have an idea of what was being done secretly, yet in our name.
And Fauci got pardoned. So
yes,
he may
did.
have killed 1 million Americans. We don't know if the exact virus was Frankensteined out that he paid for, but still, I mean, and then he just walks away like nothing happened?
My cousin George Koletsu was the second person in the state of Ohio to die of COVID back in very early 2020. That death still stings all of us in our family. And now I can't help but to look at Dr. Fauci and think, you liar. Look what you've done to our country. And you're right. He was auto-penned right into freedom and wealth and untold riches in his retirements. That is unacceptable.
He was protected, and so was China, which makes it even worse. And this just in, John, the CIA just raided Tulsi Gabbard's office. Agents hauled out dozens of boxes, files on the JFK assassination and MK Ultra, the CIA mind control operation, which she was in the process of declassifying. Today's whistleblower said it during his deposition, and Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna confirmed it moments ago.
The reason why this is troubling is, A, there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MK Ultra files. The CIA famously has said that, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed.
Can the CIA overrule the president?
No, the CIA cannot overrule the president. The CIA cannot even overrule the director of national intelligence.
And won't divulge internal conversations. I will say that those of us within the intelligence community continue to provide the president with all of the best objective intelligence available to inform his decisions.
The last what the world wants is an insecure United States. We need a strong, healthy, wealthy, self-competent, not warmongering United States to keep peace. It's the way your president is managing things. President Trump, that is.
War in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary.
Superstar, where you from? How's it going? I know you got a clue what you're doing. You can play brand new to all the other chicks out there, but I know what you are, baby. Look at you, getting more than just a re-up, baby. You got all the puppets with the strings up, faking like a good one, but I call him like I see him. I know what you are, baby. Womanizer, womanizer, you're a womanizer, womanizer, oh, you're a womanizer, baby. You are, womanizer, womanizer, womanizer. Boy, you're trying to front, and I know just what you are. Boy, you're trying to front, and I know just what you are. You got me going, you're all so charming, but I can do it. You say I'm crazy, I got you crazy.